Mark Passio claims to have taken off the velvet gloves and put on the iron gauntlets when it comes to speaking the truth. I can't say I blame him because after 20 years of trying to expose Satanists and not getting near the attention he likely should have if this were a fair and good world, I'd probably be losing my mind or have mostly given up on the idea that I can get the message through to much of anyone, and I would question even if I did. Would it matter? Well, good thing he's not me because he appears to very much be on the same path exposing the cult of power for what it is. And in this clip we are looking at today, he's talking to Kurt about the satanic sins that the ruling class should not do, but should propagate all others in the slave class to do. We are looking mainly at the first few because I think it gets the point across pretty well. Anyways, let's jump in.
I'm reading this off of their own website in real time. Okay? The first of the 9 satanic sins is stupidity. So don't embody stupidity. And what you have to understand every time you hear this in their quote sins of Satanism is this is what the Satanist should not do, but the Satanist should propagate this for all others to do, because we want to get these people locked into doing these things so we can more easily rule over them. We could turn them into our slave class and rule them. So this is what they want for the population. Hear what's being said. Really open up your ears and listen to what is said. The satanic sins are the things that the Satanists, the ruling and administrative class on earth, should not do, but that they should try to inculcate all other people who are going to become their slave class to do and be.
That does kind of seem to be how things are these days. More people are becoming informed as the access to information is a little bit easier at the moment, but it really is wild to think about the fact there is a network of people actively participating in the dumbing down of society. What gets me is that it's not just elites in this, it's all walks of life, teachers, lawyers, blue-collar workers. According to Mark Passio, there are people from all different parts of society that get into Satanism and participate in this crap designed to enslave even their own families. Mark Passio got out of it when he realized that is what was going on. The world is a big but small, messed up and weird mishmash of all these ideas and people trying to amass power while others value spending time with family and enjoying the simpler things. And it really makes me wonder where these people are tucked away. Most people barely even make contact with their neighbors anymore, it seems like. So while it's kind of obvious it's the case, it's weird to think about the fact there could be and probably is some weird stuff that goes unnoticed. I still think back to how just about every major city had about 3 locations that were somewhat run-down houses labeled as aquariums on Google Maps that people were suspecting to be associated with human trafficking, and how those disappeared immediately when they got noticed. They were just regular unassuming houses that just looked a little old and beat up. Nothing you'd suspect of anything sinister at a glance unless you were on Google Maps and saw they were listed as aquariums. I can't even imagine what weird shit goes on, and a lot of people ran into this occult and esoteric bullshit far before me, and probably had teachers or mentors or some shit like XXXTentacion, had that pimp that basically groomed him for success with some occult golden beetle stuff that I don't know a whole lot about. It's probably lucky I didn't get hit with this stuff sooner, because I would have been about it more than likely. At the time I would have given anything for music to work out. But anyways, let's keep going.
Okay, so get the idea clear. And then the first thing is stupidity. So that means the rulers of people, the ruling class, should not be stupid. They should be as well educated as possible, holistically educated. But they should get the public. They should get the morons of the world. They should get all of the unwashed masses to be as dumbed down and as stupid as possible. And just look around. Just look around us. If that's not what you see everywhere, once again, there's something wrong with your perceptive abilities. There's almost all imbecilic, moronic, stupid people everywhere. It says on their website, it's too bad that stupidity isn't painful, meaning painful for the stupid. Unfortunately, it's painful for the actually educated. That's what it's painful for.
I have chosen to embody stupidity and come in from the other angle.
So the other sins, I'll just run through them, is pretentiousness. That means pretending to be something that you're not. And you see that all over the place.
Yeah, right.
And quite frankly, you know what I have to say is a big embodiment of pretentiousness? The alternative media community.
Yeah.
They are basically putting on a mask and pretending to be something that they're really not, and they don't want to be truly genuine and real.
This is the truth. The alternative media scene and media in general, now including podcasting, is pretty corrupted, and almost everyone big enough has a billionaire behind them. I've made neutral comments about Alex Jones before because he does drop good info sometimes, but the more time I have had to be aware of more things, it has become increasingly obvious to me he's part of the controlled opposition, just like Joe Rogan has become. And truly, there are too many podcasts for me to go figure out who all is compromised, but Matt and Shane's secret podcast probably did it the most cleanly. What they did was just stop bringing up those topics and cutting out some classic jokes they used to make. But others will straight up flip or out of nowhere adopt a strong position one way or another. Sometimes they even give you good information for a bit, and then out of nowhere they'll hit you with something that makes you question everything for a second because it doesn't even make sense for that person. There is a lot more money in this kind of thing than people realize, more than even I realize. The other side of this was revealed from Twitter documents around COVID, where it was the smaller channels that were getting suppressed. If you think about it, these are the smaller creators or individuals that don't have this kind of funding one way or another. And I think that's partly why this channel has struggled here on YouTube, aside from the whole falsely labeled as AI content thing. Even labeled as AI content, the reduction in reach is crazy. But again, I'm getting a little off track. Let's keep going.
They don't want to be that hardcore, real individual. They don't want to give people the straight crap. They don't want to take off the mask. They don't want to take off the niceties. You know, telling the truth doesn't have to involve being super nice. Because in all honesty, I took off the velvet glove and put on the iron gauntlet a long time ago, and I've just been beating up on people, quite frankly. Because if you've been saying this for 20 years straight,
Yeah.
and people still don't want to believe what you are actually involved in, and don't want to believe you understand these people's mindset, you understand their whole ideology, you understand what they're doing to the rest of society, and you see it playing out practically in slow motion like a horror movie.
Yeah.
And you've been yelling this from the rooftops.
Yeah, right.
And now they're coming out, basically externalizing themselves as the satanic, pedophilic cannibals that they actually are. And then people still don't want to interview you and garner your knowledge and your wisdom from lived experience. You'd be a little bit on the perturbed
You have active
side.
people against you, dude, just so you know.
I know when Mark Passio left the satanic church he was a priest at, that they basically told him, like, good luck trying to get people to believe you and don't let the door hit you on the way out. The way he makes it sound is not like there were many people against him, but Kurt is probably right. I think there are a lot of people who probably still don't want this kind of information out there, or at least not in this capacity where it is being exposed. With that being the case, it's kind of impressive he's gone as long as he has without switching up. 20 years is a long time to have been watching this stuff play out, though. 20 years ago, people really just had no clue. There was still a lot more trust in the government. The internet hadn't become a fraction of what it is today, and to think this guy was out there trying to warn us the whole time. The world and society already makes me feel like I'm going insane, but to have been a priest in something like this, and knowing how real that ideology is, and that its members are school teachers, principals, judges, lawyers, office workers, in every walk of life, I would really be losing my mind if people didn't listen to me.
I mean, look, the bottom line is...
I know what dumb pieces of trash
And
the people of this world are. They're dumb trash.
Well, what I mean is, besides just that, one thing I could not have fathomed before I was working on Jimmy's show, and like the weirdness of like his getting hacked by Pegasus, and you're like, why? And then when it came out, and Matt Taibbi turned out to be bullshit too, but when he was in those Twitter files, they were going after smaller accounts. They weren't going after the big ones. And what people don't expect, and nobody believes me. Well, I mean, no, people believe me that know shit, but in comedy, for example, so I'm in Austin, Rogan's Club is here. Talk about painfully stupid. You know, there's a whole group of people that seem to believe that Rogan got Trump elected single-handedly by letting him talk on his show, which their candidate, who was part of the same thing, could have gone on herself.
I go into the idea that a lot of the alternative media could very much and very well be controlled opposition.
Well, not just
by
that.
who they
I'm
want
saying,
to
wait. I'm not saying, okay. Of course that. Of course that.
I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, and I know that I have mentioned it before, but thinking Joe Rogan single-handedly got Trump to win the election is crazy. Thinking these elections are in any way legitimate is the most insane part to me. Like anyone who actually thought voting machines or voting on an electronic system was ever going to turn up accurate results with the world we live in is sorely mistaken. And those votes from us don't even decide anything. It's the Electoral College. The whole shit's a scam, and this was the first major crack I saw through as a kid, learning about the Electoral College. I was like, so you are telling me voting does nothing to choose the president, but you're also telling me it's my right and responsibility. What sense does that make? This is when I still am no expert on politics now, but you're shoving all this down my throat at 18 in community college, which is wild, bro. That's an age where a lot of dudes will adopt political views for pussy, so unless you have ulterior motives and it benefits you, that doesn't make sense.
But what I didn't know is, and it came out because I'm in the Epstein files, not because I did nothing, but he got invited to a show that I was on that was being taped on his birthday. Never got a chance to hang out. A friend of mine, I mean, we're close, but I always liked him, is in those files, and it ain't good. A lot of pizza emails about him.
Yes.
So that's creepy as hell. But there's people from Intel and all these, especially because MK Ultra and Monarch are real things. They know that the propaganda and the media, of course, they're going to have their own alternative, and they're going to have people that they send to like comedy clubs.
Yeah, they want people to massage this. You know, they want them to put a spin on it to almost make it socially acceptable, to make it just be acknowledged as, oh yeah, that's what they do, and that they'll just get away with it and never be brought to justice.
You can spot them now.
Out of all the bad that came out of the war with Iran, the one thing you could make an argument for being good about it is that it blatantly exposed a lot of people for being on the payroll of that huge budget Israel has for influencers in the media in the United States. There are those clips of Netanyahu talking about the 8-front war or something like that, where social media is this new landscape of war to pump money into. They probably need more than a bunch of influencers to convince very many people of anything positive related to them.
And now I'm starting to see, the thing is funny is, certain people, as soon as you tell certain lies to me, I know I kind of know what's up, even if I don't know all the specifics. But now I'm starting to find out about, you find out about people you always liked that were saying the right thing, and meaning
and
they're not liars.
Be held down for it. Yes, absolutely.
And then all of a sudden you'll see, without being specific about any person, I'm telling you, but you'll see them suddenly say something that makes no sense after they just told you all this that. Right. People I've learned stuff from, and I'm like, this.
That's
there's
when
motive
throw
here.
the big curveball at you, and
right.
change their whole mindset. Yep.
And I don't. This is the thing. I don't
bait
care.
Bait and switch.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm only looking at the fruits of your works, or the works of your fruits in showbiz, I guess you could say, and that's it. And I don't. Hey, everybody's nice. I like everybody. I don't care about high school or who your dad was, or when we cover the TPUSA bizarre Luciferian thing that they do. What do you believe, Candace? No. What does that
people have to get into philosophy. They have to understand mindsets, ideologies that are operating.
This is something I was kind of pointing out recently when an old clip of Kurt talking with Nick Mullen came up. They kind of go off on philosophy as this lame and fake sort of thing when we're listening to people like Izzy Griffin and how useful it seems to be in understanding esoteric and occult ideas. I think it's a lot more important than they were giving credit to. And here's a clip of Mark Passio saying exactly the kind of thing I was trying to get at. To me, it seems intimidating to find a starting point, but the next opportunity I have to pick up some books, I think I'm going in this direction to try and get a better foundational understanding of the archetypes and ideologies behind this stuff for when I look at these things or make videos about them.
That's how you're going to understand what's underneath what drives their behavior. When you understand these people's mindset, all their behavior suddenly makes sense. It doesn't look like chaos anymore. It looks like, wow, this is their mindset in operation. This is their agenda that's reflective of their mindset. That's why the alternative media community has to stop just trying to analyze events, everyday events. Everyday events are going to be the same thing until the end of time. If you don't understand mindset and you don't understand the why that underlies behavior, you don't understand anything. So I want to wrap up the sins and get into what are the systems that are operating. Because again, that's where people have to make a personal choice. Are they going to be on God's side or are they going to be on the satanic side? So the third satanic sin behind stupidity and pretentiousness is solipsism. Solipsism is the belief that there's no such thing as truth. Everything is just relative, and your perception is the only thing you can
That's
be
very
sure of.
interesting, that one in particular to me, because that,
And
yeah.
they're telling their members,
Mhm.
don't be a solipsist. So try to really understand what they're saying by this list.
I also think that solipsism is a really interesting or devious one on this list. The current landscape of news and the media seems like it was designed exactly for this. Everything everywhere seems like flooding the zone more than it's anything useful or actually new 80% of the time. I'm pulling that percentage out of my ass, but I have a hard time believing many people would disagree that the news cycle is mostly bullshit. Personally, I tune out of most of it while it's happening and wait for the reverberations of anything important to find me through other means. But the point I was making about flooding the zone is that it puts people without the time to comb through all the details in a place where they get hit with all these different theories about things without being able to go through and find all the evidence and weed out the people being honest or that are on payroll or just caught up in confusion. Or maybe they're trying to be aligned with consensus to avoid being shadow banned on social media but not avoid the topic altogether. Whatever the case is, removing the objective truth seems like a bad move to me.
This list is saying we, as Satanists, as the rulers of the world, should never buy into these things, but we should always propagate these things to our slaves.
Mhm.
The slave class should buy into all of this crap. The rulers should always steer clear of this crap. Okay? That's what has to be understood. So the Satanists here are saying solipsism is garbage. We should propagate that to the garbage we're ruling over and give them this garbage mindset. But as a Satanist, you should never buy into this. So solipsism is number 3. Number 4 is self-deceit. Think about it again. We shouldn't deceive ourselves, but we should deceive everybody else and get them to deceive themselves in their ignorance and in their garbage mindset.
I think Mark Passio carries a pretty important message and warning, one that personally I feel a little late to the party to. If I was smarter, I could have picked up on it around COVID when I was deep in the Old Testament of Matt and Shane's secret podcast, because Matt talks about Mark Passio and they do mention a lot of these topics like 5 years earlier, but it's not at this depth, and it's mostly Shane calling it gay or making fun of Matt because he can't remember all of the details, which is literally the reason I use clips. For some reason, I feel like I have a decent understanding of things, and when I start reaching for the words, I end up realizing how few of the specifics I recall in a way I can retell them where it makes sense. Part of the solution for me is reading, because I tend to remember things I read or write more than what I'm able to absorb from a podcast or audio. It just sucks because I've never been a big fan of it. The quiet, I need to focus on reading drives me crazy because I just lock in on my tinnitus and then that's distracting as hell. And I can't listen to things like I normally would because my brain finds just about anything more interesting than reading, and it'll start focusing on that. It's like meditating while straining your eyes, and I've never been a huge fan of meditation either. I see how it can have value, and I can do it a couple days in a row, but it's that whole being quiet in a quiet place and not moving much or interacting with anything beyond the occasional page turn in the case of reading. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the 9990 Breakdown. Shout out to the first new channel member. Thank you so much. It really means a lot. And get ready to see your name on the first credit screen. I also have a members only video planned about bloodlines and familiars, so stay tuned for that, and I will catch all of you in the next one.